Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. We're here in the pool. It's Wednesday. It's time for Underwater Wednesday. And believe it or not, we are not going to be talking about any core tackle products today on Underwater Wednesday. But we do have a bait that we're going to show you. I've been wanting to do an episode on this bait for a long time now. This is a bait that I don't think very many people use, but it absolutely in tournament fishing, especially if you're on the TVA lakes, and especially if you're fishing around this time of year, this is a bait that is a money winner for sure. And we're going to talk about it today. We're going to be talking about a scrounger. And the scrounger is a phenomenal, like I said, a phenomenal bait for ledge fishing, phenomenal bait on the TVA, but it's got a lot of places. In fact, we saw Jacob Wheeler use it catching smallies up by the dam when they were fishing in one of the BPT tournaments that he came in second place on that event. So we're going to talk about the scrounger. We're going to talk about how to fish it. We're going to show you what it looks like in the water and why this is such a great bait. Guys, stick around. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. All right, we're talking about the scrounger head. And let me get this for you. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this bait, but basically what this is a straight tail minnow that is put on a jig head, but unlike just a jig head minnow, this has basically a bill, a crankbait type bill that faces up, which gives this bait a rocking motion. Now, it comes in a lot of different sizes. What I tend to like to do is get a size weight that will keep my bait closer to the bottom. And then all I do is swim this bait along the bottom. I get that nice rocking motion back and forth, looking like a shad kind of going along the bottom during the shad spawn. This is great. Even afterwards, along those shell beds and things like that. This is a phenomenal bait to throw. You turn on those TVA lakes when that current gets ripping and those shad and those fish are hanging on those breaks, those current breaks, and those drop-offs. This is a phenomenal bait to fish around ledges when you're ledge fishing. And because of the different size weights, you can fish this bait in 8 feet of water, or you can fish this bait in 20 feet of water just using heavier weights. Let's look at this bait in the pool and kind of show you exactly what this bait looks like as it's being swum through the water. This bait that you're looking here, the soft plastic is a Castaic Jerky J. These are on stagger jig heads. This one happens to be a 1/2 ounce. The 1/2 ounce the bigger the heads, what you'll find is the bigger the bills. And the bigger the bill, that's what gives you a wider wobble. So you can see that this has a pretty exaggerated wobble. And a little bit later on in the video, we're going to show you one that has a smaller head and a smaller bill, and you'll notice that that one's got a much tighter wobble. But you can see that this bait looks very realistic in the water. The Jerky J is the kind of the standard soft plastic. One of the things I recommend whenever you're fishing a scrounger head is that you fish a straight tail. A fluke works fine on a scrounger. The other thing, quite honestly, that works real good is the new freeloader from Rapala, that even though that's typically known as being a jig head minnow type of a bait, a freeloader works just great on the back of a scrounger head. It's got that same look as this Jerky J here in terms of the shape of the body and those kinds of things. Now I want you to pay attention here as we're watching the scrounger doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is scrounging along the bottom. It looks very realistic. Picture that instead of being the floor of the pool, being just a shell bed and having that little shad imitating Castaic Jerky J have that be like a shad that's running across the shell bed. That's gonna attract fish very well, and that's exactly what this bait is meant to do. A nice kind of slow retrieve, gradual slow rolling retrieve. Just get that bait wobbling back and forth, crawling along the bottom, ticking along the bottom, and this is exactly what you want to see this bait do. Guys, before we get into showing you the smaller version of this with a little lighter weight and a little smaller bill, I do want to let you know the rod setup that I use. And typically, to be honest, this bait may remind you of a chatterbait, and that's exactly the type of rod that I will throw it on. I will throw it on my chatterbait rod. I want a longer rod. I want to, it's going to have a kind of a fast tip to it. I want to be able to allow that fish to inhale that bait, but once he does, I want to be able to set the hook. The hook set is very much like a chatterbait hook set. And so I'm going to slow roll that bait and so a chatterbait rod is the rod I use. I also have a tendency, I absolutely use fluorocarbon line. I want the bait to get down. I want the bait to stay down and ride along the bottom. I'm typically using anywhere between 16 and 20 pound fluorocarbon line when I'm throwing a scrounger head. Now let's get back in the pool and take a look at the smaller version, which I would throw in shallower water, say 8 foot of water. Now you can see as we're fishing this smaller size weight, this is a 1/2 ounce weight, and it's got a smaller bill, and the wobble is a little bit tighter, a little less exaggerated, but it's still there. Still looks nice. And so you can kind of have an impact on the wobble that the scrounger head has by changing up the bill sizes or the weights depending on the depth and what you're looking for, in the type of fishing that you're doing. Guys, real quickly, I do want to show you, so the way this bait actually comes is in separate parts. So you've got the jig, you've got your bill, you put your bill on and you kind of slide it up the weight, up the jig, and then kind of just roll it onto, you can see there's a groove right in the head of the jig. You kind of roll the bill right up onto the jig, then make sure that you put it so it's straight. And once you put it on there, you kind of see that concave, that when these bills come in the package, they're flat. There's no concaveness to them at all. But then once you put them onto the jig, you get that concave portion to the plastic. The fact that it gets rolled around that jig, that's what gives you that concave molding, which makes that bait wobble back and forth. And then you just thread whatever soft plastic that you want to use. Like I said, whether you use a Jerky J or a freeloader, you can use a Zaco. But again, stay away from your boot tails, guys. This is what's imparting the action. Anytime you put any kind of a boot tail, now they're fighting against each other. So a straight tail, a fluke, anything that's straight tail, that's what you want to be putting on your scrounger head. Now, I don't want you to think that this bait is just for TVA lakes. Smallmouth love these things. So if you can get to lakes that have rocky banks, sandy banks, things like that, where you can work these baits, especially around smallmouth love and go crazy when you're throwing a scrounger. So I highly recommend, checking out a scrounger. If you don't use it, try and find a place to put that into your arsenal. You will absolutely love it when that fish hits that scrounger. Believe me. Guys, I'd love to hear your comments on this. If you haven't, please hit that subscribe button and join the Mark Fisher Outdoors community. And we will see you again tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.